Hello, the Pioneer viewers. As the Russia-Ukraine war continues, we continue to report the agenda to you. As you know, the war has been going on for nearly 2 years. The parties have made significant gains with the mutual heavy attacks. The economic dimension of the war may be the most important dimension. Economically weak countries may experience difficulties due to the limited resources in times of the war. It is known that the countries with strong economics overcome difficulties more easily. During times of the war, production facilities must continue to operate actively. By continuing to produce, production facilities provide both money flow and the resources to be used in the war to continue that switch to a war economy. States need to anticipate these issues when making strategic planning and make their plans accordingly. Details such as which facility will produce which vehicles in case of the war should be ready. Following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the war has taken on a different dimension. Throughout the war, Russia tried to gain territory by launching attacks on the Ukrainian territory. Russia's attempts to gain territory were prevented to some extent thanks to the successful counter-defense of the Ukrainian army. Since the Russian army could not predict the protracted nature of the war, it has experienced great difficulties in the terms of resources as the war dragged on. The economic sanctions initiated by the US and the European countries caused many problems for Russia. Although Russia's economic structure was self-sufficient to some extent, it suffered great damage as a result of the economic sanctions and the embargoes. The heavy losses of the Russian army on the battlefield constitute another dimension of the economic problems. The Russian economy, which has been experiencing problems as a result of the economic sanctions, is now faced with the automobile crisis. Now, if you are ready, let's examine the automobile crisis in Russia and the latest developments on the Russian armored vehicles that have turned into ruins. As the Pioneer, we continue to report on the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also read all your comments on our videos. Please continue to share your ideas about our content in the comments with us. Tell us in the comments what content you would like to see on the Pioneer channel. Let's start if you are ready. The Pioneer reports. Footage has emerged in recent days showing a large number of Russian armored vehicles in ruins. Images are a powerful reminder of the devastating effects of the war. It also shows the defensive strength of the Ukrainian army fighting against the Russian army. A new photo released by the Ukrainian military shows a snapshot of the number of Russian military vehicles waiting on the train around Avdiivka in the embattled Donetsk region after the 3 months of the fierce fighting for the strategic settlements. The area has been intense and bloody fighting in the past. Both armies made a concreted effort to hold the region. After the bloody clashes in the region, images from the region reveal the extent of the clashes. Images of the destruction of many Russian armored vehicles are shared by the Ukrainian army. Brigadier General Alexander Travskivsky, commander of the Ukraine's Tavria forces groups fighting Avdiivka, said there was hundreds of destroyed Russian equipment along the front line near the town northwest of the region, capital Donetsk city. The Ukrainian commander also shared a photo showing 3 weakened Russian vehicles covered in snow. Fighting in the area continues, albeit at low intensity. Holding the area is strategically important for both sides. While the Russian army is losing its gains in the region, the Ukrainian army is strengthening its defenses. Chernovsky says that Russia has lost 4 tanks along this section of the front line in the last 24 hours. In nearly 2 years of the war, the Russian army has lost almost its pre-war armored vehicles and tanks fleet. It is difficult to obtain accurate information on how many armored vehicles and tanks have been damaged, destroyed, captured, or abandoned. Russian officials are reluctant to share the official figures on losses. The Ukrainian military said Russia had lost 12 tanks in the past days, bringing its total tank losses to 6,050 since February 2022. Kiev said that Moscow had also lost 22 armored personnel carriers in the past 24 hours, bringing its total losses to 11,238. It is an important detail that the Ukrainian military has been publicizing data on the war since the beginning of the war. The Kiev administration, which wants to manage the war processes in a transparent manner, is openly sharing the data. The figures shared by the Ukrainian army are not confirmed by the Russian officials, but many European sources support the accuracy of the data. Russian vehicle losses quickly became a decisive part of the Kremlin's attacks on Avdiivka. According to an analysis of the satellite imagery, Moscow lost more than 211 vehicles around Avdiivka between October 10 and November 28, when Russia launched its assaults on the town. The British Ministry of Defense also claimed that Russia lost nearly 200 armored vehicles in the first 3 weeks of the attacks on Avdiivka. While information about Russia's vehicle losses continues to come in, another crisis has emerged regarding cars in Russia. Vladimir Putin's right-hand man has complained about the quality of the domestically made vehicles months after he argued that the Russian automobile industry to abandon foreign cars for Russian cars as if it faces tough times. Kremlin press secretary Dmitry Peskov commented on the Russia's Predator all-terrain vehicle, which Putin recently used during a visit to Chotkotka in the country's far east. Western sanctions imposed over Putin's war in Ukraine have strained Russia's auto market, with foreign manufacturers pulling out and suspending operations in the country. Russia is now facing a shortage of the spare parts after problems forced Russian carmaker Avdiivka to suspend its operations in May 2023. Putin has pressed to demobilize Russia's domestic automotive industry, demanding that all the country's officials should use domestic cars. He also instructed the government last June to introduce regulations requiring taxi drivers to use only Russian vehicles. When asked about the Predators, Peskov said the driver who picked it up at the airport told him he needed to improve the vehicle. Peskov, Putin's press secretary, said that the vehicle needed to be fixed and described the problems he had experienced. He said that the steering wheel works too hard, the transmission is bad, and the engine works well, but it is important. In his statement, Peskov said that work should be done to improve Russia's domestic vehicles and better results should be achieved. He advised automakers not to be complacent and to work hard. The sanctions against Russia also make it difficult for the Russian economy to access resources outside of the war. For this reason, many Russian production facilities have suspended their work. As the war continues, a new plant in Russia is shutting down every day. What do you think about the dozens of wrecked Russian armored vehicles found on Avdiivka? Considering the mutual losses, which side do you think suffered heavier losses? What do you think about the automobile crisis in Russia? Do you support the sanctions against Russia? We care about your opinion. Please share it with us.